In a previous video, we've created this updates record test, and then we've created the update and fetch object methods on the database class. Now, one thing we haven't done, actually, we haven't written any proper tests for this fetch object method. So this is what we're going to focus on in this video. After our update record test, let's create a new one called fetch object returns std class instance. So the first one, the default one, as you may remember, if we just go back to the database and if we go back to our fetch object, if we didn't pass the third argument, then it's going to return the default std standard class basically instance. So that's what we're going to be testing for. So first of all, we're going to add book. This add book, and let's pass some values, say title equals what could it equal? Book of Jungle, for instance. So now we've got a book record. Next thing we're going to do is to fetch this record. So book equals this db instance of our database object, fetch object, and we pass the SQL here, which I'm going to remove this, put on new lines. Our SQL will be select all from books where ID equals and a placeholder question mark. And then for this question mark to bind to it, we are going to use this last insert ID. Whatever this insert ID here from within this add book method has returned, this is the record we're looking for. So now what we're going to do is this assert instance of, and we are assuming that this specific method without the third argument, this fetch object, should return std class and then class, because that's what we want to return. We want to basically check for the name of this class to get using any namespaces if there are any, and then book, which it has been returned from this fetch object. So the instance, and then the message, I'm going to put it again on new lines here, semicolon at the end, obviously. And then if we scroll up, the message will say something like did not return std class instance. So let's run it. Let's go back to our terminal, PHP unit, and there we go. We have 4 tests, but obviously we haven't included this test because we didn't indicate that it's actually a test. So let's put the doc blocks with the tag test. Now let's go back to the terminal, run it again, and now we have 5 tests and 6 assertions, all of which pass. So this one is definitely, this fetch method is definitely now returning the instance of the std class. Now let's try another thing. Let's just to make sure that it's the correct record, let's do this assert equals, and we're looking for book of Jungle, and what we are comparing to is book title, and let's put it all on new lines as well. And if it didn't return an std class instance does not return correct title. So let's run it again as well, and this time we have 5 tests but 7 assertions because this last one has 2 assertions obviously. So it's all good. So the book, first of all, it's an instance of std class, and then the title matches to what we actually specified it as. Okay, so this is the first test. Next test will test for any specific class instance. So let's create a new one. I'm going to scroll a little bit. Public function. This one will be called fetch object underscore object returns book instance. And we start again with the same thing. So this add book, and let's do the same thing. Title book of Jungle, and then we go for book equals this db instance fetch object, and let's just put it on new lines. We are going to start with the select statement all from books. We could actually copy what we've got in the previous method, where ID equals question mark, and this last ID, insert ID for the second argument. And the third argument, I want to specify that I want to use book class. So book class, there we go. So this is the class I want this returned object to be an instance of. Okay, so now this assert instance of, and we're looking for book class, and we're comparing this to book, and then the message, let's just put it on new lines again for clarity, and if we just put comma here, there we go, and if it fails, the message will say did not return book instance, or call to fetch, perhaps call to fetch object did not return book instance. Let's check this, the same thing here. Call to fetch object did not return std instance. Okay, let's now check if it validates, basically if the test passes. So if we clear the screen, PHP unit, and there we go. Again, we've forgotten to mark it as test. So test, back to terminal, run it, and the error we get here is telling us that assert instance of must be a class or interface name, and this is because this book class does not exist. We haven't created it yet. So let's quickly open the file browser, go to app directory, and let's create a new one called model. And inside of this directory, we're going to keep all of our models. The first one will be book, and the namespace for this one will be app, a \model, and that's all. If we click on OK, and for the time being, I'm just going to close all that. We are going to leave it as this. We're not going to be working with this as yet, so let's just keep it this way. Now we need to obviously import this class here. So at the top of our database test, let's import this model. So use book model, there we go, app model book. And if we now try and run the same test, if we go PHP unit, there we go, we have 6 tests, 8 assertions, all of which pass. Now, one last thing, again, as we did with the previous one, let's check that the title matches. So I'm just going to basically copy what we have in the previous statement, just to make sure that, and this time obviously it's going to be book instance rather than std class. Book instance does not, okay, not return correct title, not, same here. Okay, these spelling mistakes happen all the time. To me, that's for sure. Okay, so yeah, let's run the test again. We should have 9 assertions now, and we do. So 6 tests, 9 assertions, all of which pass. So that's it in this video. We've created additional 2 tests to make sure that our fetch object method is working as expected. We can now move to the next video.